Hey everybody, Jim the Tabletop Engineer here, and welcome to a new episode of the Tabletop Engineer Plays. This is actually not going to be a playthrough video. This is going to be a very short intro video. I am going to be playing this game and recording my sessions, but I'm going to be doing it with my youngest son because he's the one who actually got me into this game. And I want to share it with you because initially I was not really interested. But after having played the game more than once, but the first time was all it took for me to get hooked on this game. So let me show you what this game is. And some of you have probably heard of it. It's been out for, I think, a couple years. It's called Marvel Champions, right there. Now, this is just the lid. This is the core box. You can still get this. It's still being printed. It's from Fantasy Flight. And I seem to recall that it's about $60 retail. Here's the thing. I love the Marvel movies. I've never really been into like superhero games like RPGs or war games. But my youngest son really likes games that have sort of he likes the tactical nature. Like, he likes Magic, although he doesn't play Magic, because he likes the idea of, you play this card, you exhaust it, and it allows you to trigger this card. Well, when you play that card, now you can play this card and trigger both to do. He likes these intricate mechanics of a game that allow you to do a lot of crazy things once your deck is sort of, filled out. So I guess he had watched a video of Marvel Champions. Somebody had recommended it to me. I sent the video to him and let him watch it. He wanted to play. So I'm going to give a special shout out right now to Caleb at Titan Games and Comics. And I'm going to give a shout out to the whole crew there, because they have a Monday night session of this where players can come and play, and they'll teach the game. So Sawyer, my youngest, and I went on a Monday night, and we had bought the deck, and we had played a rough game, but we did not know what we were doing. And it's not a hard game to learn. I will tell you that right now. It's just neither one of us had really sort of read the rules 100% or understood them. And so we went, and Caleb sat down and played a game with us, and I knew at that point, I knew Sawyer was hooked, but at that point, having seen the game played and having played it and understood the mechanics, all of a sudden, I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool game. What it is you're going to build a deck. It's like Magic. It's like any card game. Well, not any card game, but it's like a lot of the card games that are out now where you're going to customize your deck. The core game comes with 5 superheroes to choose from. Let's see. It's Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and Captain America, Spider-Man, Iron Man. Yeah, that was it. Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and Captain America. That's the one I forgot. So right off the bat, when you get the box, you've got some really cool superheroes to play. Not a one of them is sort of what you would call a sort of a last-minute toss in, like, yeah, let's give them that hero. They're all really cool. She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Captain America, Spider-Man, and one of my favorites, Iron Man. So with the core game, you immediately have the option to play up to 5 heroes. You can pick the one you want. This game can be played solo or cooperative. It's not competitive. You're not competing against the other players. So, I guess you could, but the Avengers typically fight together. The Guardians of the Galaxy typically fight together. What's really cool about this, since I'm talking about heroes, is this game has been out for a couple years. So right now, and I don't have an exact number, there are well over 20, maybe even over 25 heroes that you can purchase from your gaming store. And they're purchased individually. Now, the core game, like I said, comes with 5 heroes. But if those 5 don't interest you, let's say you want War Machine, which is personally one of my favorites, or Ant-Man, or Venom, or, I don't know, Quicksilver, Doctor Strange, Thor, Hulk. If you've got a favorite Marvel hero who's sort of been introduced in the movies, chances are that character exists as a pack that you can buy separately. They're about $16. Black Widow just popped in my mind. Pretty much all the Avengers are available. The Guardians of the Galaxy are available. It's really interesting. They Fantasy Flight has done just an amazing job of getting what I would consider the most well-known and popular heroes out there. And then there are some that I didn't know who they were. And I'm not a big Marvel comic book reader. I know most of them, but there are some I had no clue what these guys are or gals. So when you buy a pack, it comes looking like this. It comes in a plastic bubble that comes with this little insert in it, so you see what the hero is. Inside this, you get this little fold-out sheet, which gives you any special rules for that particular deck that go in addition to the core rules. And they're usually just like a couple cards you may have in your deck may need just a little bit more explanation, and that's what this little insert does. But in addition to this, you're going to get, I believe, is it a 60-card deck, give or take. And in that deck is a ready-to-play hero. You don't have to customize it. It is already built out with all the cards you need to sit down and immediately play that hero. So what comes with a hero? Let's go ahead and go over that. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you mine. So this is War Machine. He's one of the ones I play. Now the deck is this is about a little thicker than the deck you get when you buy one of these packs because I've customized my deck. You'll get a card that has the alter ego, which is James Rhodes or Rhodey, and then on the flip side is the hero. This is important to the rules because you will be playing your game at various times. You'll be flipping between your alter ego and your hero version. Now, in addition to your hero card, you're going to get 15 cards that are unique to that hero. So in my deck, there are 15 War Machine cards, and my cards specifically are like enhanced armor. There's 2 gauntlet cannons. There's a back cannon. There's another one that gives you flight characteristics. There's a missile launcher. You get the idea. Captain America has his shield. Now his cards are typically like maneuvers, like throwing the shield and hitting multiple targets, and it comes back to you and things like that. Here's what's really slick. Every hero, and we've got about 10. We've bought about 5 extra heroes on top of the 5 that comes. We've got about 10. All of the hero decks between my son and I, we've played all of them. And every one of them is totally unique in the sense that those cards are specific to that hero, and they fit that hero. The things you see the hero using or doing, like in the movies or in the comic books, Fantasy Flight and the game creators have done a really amazing job of making sure that that character behaves like that character, that they have the abilities, the skills, the tactics that you would expect from that hero. I'm just laughing because it's just incredibly well done. Now, before I knew all this, I went and I played the game, and I didn't know what I was doing, so Caleb taught us, and now I am really, really just amazed at the complexity that this game brings. Not complexity in the sense that it's hard to play or hard to learn. It's just once you learn the basic rules of the game and how to use your deck, then your deck just becomes, you can do just some of these most incredible, it's what my youngest son Sawyer likes to do. He plays Venom. He loves the Venom deck. There are some specialty cards in there that once he gets out, they allow him to do other abilities. And when he does that ability, he can play another card from his deck. And it's sort of dominoes. And you'll find that happening with pretty much every deck. The other thing that's going to happen is, this is what's bad about the game, is you're going to see other players playing the game, and you're going to be like, dude, that's a cool hero. I want to play that one next time. So I jump around from hero to hero. I like playing Ant-Man. Ant-Man has an alter ego, like what I showed you, Scott Lang, but he has 2 different heroes that he can flip to. He can go minuscule or he can go giant. And depending on the form you're in, the cards that you play will do one thing if you're in small form, and they can do another thing if you're in big form. Some cards can only be played when you're in big form. Some cards can only be played when you're in little form. It's just a really, for a 50 card deck, the maximum cards you can have in your hand when you play the game is 50, and that's not counting your hero card. That one stays played down. And then the other thing that comes in the pack that you buy is a 5 deck or 5 card what they call a nemesis, a hero nemesis. Now, War Machine, he's got one called Living Laser. Living Laser comes with his menu or his card that tells how much damage he can take, how much damage he delivers, things like that. Plus, it also comes with some additional cards. And what's interesting about these 5 cards, every hero has a set of these. You set these aside before you play the game. They're sort of set aside. And during the game, there are 1 or 2 cards in the main enemy deck or your villain deck that can call forth your special nemesis deck. So it's very possible you may not encounter your nemesis during a one particular game, but it's also possible that you and each of your fellow players during the game may draw one of these cards that says, hey, guess what? Your nemesis has arrived. And the way it's sort of like a story. You're playing a main villain, and while you're battling the villain, maybe your nemesis decides, hey, while his attention is focused on this villain, I'm going to go and I'm going to do what I want to do. What do they want to do? Well, that's another interesting thing. Let me jump to that. It's called a main scheme, and there's main scheme and then there's side scheme. So you pick a villain, and with the main core set come 3 main villains that you can play. One is Rhino, the other one is Claw with a K, and the other one is Ultron. And that's the complexity of it. It goes, Rhino's typically one of the easier ones to beat. Claw gets a little harder, and then Ultron is pretty difficult. Sawyer and I have played all 3 of the bad guys. We can routinely beat Rhino and Claw on the basic, just the basic game, not the expert level, but the basic level. Ultron at basic level, we've played him twice. We lost once and we won once. He's a bit of a villain. But while you're battling the main villain has what's called a main scheme. The villain you can beat by reducing their health to 0. And it's not that easy because most villains come in levels. So each villain is going to have 3 cards. And in the upper right corner, you're going to see a 1, a 2, and a 3 right there. When you play a game, you either play level 1 and 2 or play level 2 and 3. Level 1 and 2 is the beginner basic, and level 2 and 3 is sort of considered the advanced. We've been playing 1 and 2 for all of them. We have not graduated to the 3 yet because the 3s really get powerful. So what you do is you put the 2 cards down on the thing. You pick your villain. You can pick them in any order you like. Trust me, play Rhino first. We're going to play Claw. Well, Claw has an attack value and a scheme value and then some special abilities and health. So when his health is reduced, or when Claw is reduced, his hit points go to 0, the first card goes away, his hit points go back up, and it's per player. So his basic level 1 hit points are 12 per player. So with a 2-player game, he starts out with 24 hit points. You reduce that to 0, card 1 goes away, and now he's got 18 hit points per player. He goes up to 36. When you defeat that second card, the villain is done, and you win the game. By the way, level 3 is 22 hit points per player, and his special abilities get tougher, his attack values get higher, his scheming values get higher. So the villain can be leveled up based on your gameplay, and you're trying to get him down to 0 health. He's doing the same thing. You have every player has a little dial for their health. They all have a beginning health. You can never go higher than that unless a card adds additional hit points. When you get down to 0, you're knocked out. You're out of the game. And so hopefully your partner, if you're playing a 2-person game, can finish the villain off. And also you can play solo. So I've played a few solo games. Sawyer's played a few solo games, and it's quite fun playing solo. It's very much like a comic book. In addition to your main villain, there is a main scheme that is in play. So there's 2 ways that you can lose, really. You get your hit points reduced to 0, or the villain's main scheme gets to a certain value. Now, the main scheme will say you put the card on the table, and you put a number of tokens. There's 1s, 3s, and 5s. These are scheme or threat tokens. So every time, the way the game works is I take a turn, I try to attack the villain or do things, build up my cards that I'm playing on the table. Then my partner, if I'm playing a 2-player or 3-player or 4-player, every player takes a turn. After the number of players have gone, then it's the villain's turn. The villain will either attack each player, or they will do what's called a scheme. And when they scheme, they put a number of tokens on their main scheme card. When that main scheme card hits a certain value, you lose automatically. So for example, Claw's main scheme, let me just draw it out here real quick. His main scheme has a value of 8 per player. So when there are 16 of these threat tokens on this card in a 2-player game, we lose. So as you fight the villain, you're also going to have to pay attention to this card and reduce the threats to keep them low and not hitting the deadline of like 16 points for a 2-player game. And you do this by what's called thwarting. So when it's your turn, you can attack the main villain or minions, and I'll explain minions in a minute, or you can thwart. You can only do one or the other with your main hero. But you can have allies. Allies can thwart or attack. Your main hero can thwart or attack. And when you thwart, you'll take a certain number of tokens off. Like War Machine, for example, he thwarts for 1 and he attacks for 2. So when I exhaust his card, I say, oh, I'm going to thwart this round instead of attacking. I exhaust the card by turning it sideways, and I remove 1 thwart token off of the main scheme. Or I could say I'm going to attack Ultron, for example, and I turn it and I do 2 damage. Now, 2 damage doesn't sound like a whole lot, but remember, you're playing cards that can enhance your damage. Like War Machine has weapons that will add to the damage that he can do. He also can call out allies. You can put allies in your deck of cards. Remember, you can have up to 50 cards. You can put allies in your deck that they can tap or exhaust. And they have thwart and attack values as well. They also have hit points. So when they take a certain number of damage, they're not killed. They just go in your discard pile, but they might be able to come out later when you end up shuffling your discard deck. You can also, your hero is the only one who has a defend value. So instead of attacking or thwarting, another value I can do is defend. So when the hero does, say, 5 damage, War Machine has a 2 defense. If I exhaust him to defend, I'll only take 3 damage. But when he's exhausted, there's only certain times in the game when you can unexhaust. So there's a strategy of when do you exhaust, when do you attack, when do you thwart that you got to keep track of. Every hero deck comes with a card called an obligation. It's 1 card, and this is mixed into the villain deck. It's orange on the back, whereas all the hero cards are blue on the back. So this card and all of your fellow players, everybody takes their obligation cards, and these get mixed into the villain deck. Let's explain how the villain's turn goes. On the villain's turn, the villain will either attack you or scheme. And the way that happens is if your card is showing face up alter ego, the villain will scheme. He cannot attack your alter ego. So the villain has a scheme value, and you'll put that number of tokens on the main scheme. However, if you're in hero form, he will attack you. And if you have allies out, you can choose whether your ally takes some damage, like maybe your ally gets in front and takes the hit, or whether you take the hit on your hero. The other thing the hero does, or the villain does, they attack or they scheme, right? So that's during the attack phase. Then there's the encounter phase. In the villain deck, there are lots of cards. There are minion cards. Minions are sort of like your allies. They're the villain allies, and they attach to a player when they come out. So on the villain's encounter turn, each player goes around clockwise, and each one will draw 1, typically 1. Sometimes there's things that make you draw 2 or more. You'll draw one encounter card. If the encounter card is a villain, a bad guy, it attaches to you. You will attack it to get rid of it. Other players can attack it to get rid of it. So it's a cooperative game. You can always help one another. You can heal one another, things like that. You can heal one another's allies with certain cards. But if an encounter card is pulled and it's an obligation, whosever obligation that is, let's say my son pulls my obligation, that card immediately comes to me, and there's penalties that are going to affect me. It's like I have an obligation. And they're usually not very rarely are they positive. They're usually negative. They usually impact you. And then once they are done, they go into the villain discard pile because they can show up again. So every player is always on the lookout for their obligation, which is usually not something you want to see. The other things that can appear are upgrades. The villain can pull card. You could pull an encounter card that gives the villain more hit points, more attack value. There are cards that cause the villain to add more scheme tokens at a faster rate. This game ramps up very quickly, but it doesn't just go from 0 to 100. It's a curve. But as that curve is building, so is your deck. You're pulling cards out of you're shuffling your deck at the start of the game, and you're drawing a certain number of cards per turn, and those cards have a cost to play them. And once they're in play, if they're upgrades, they stay in play. If they're weapons, they stay in play. If they're events, they are a one-time thing, and then they go in your discard pile. And then there's other types of cards that will show up. The game is very customizable. And I tell you that because when you buy your deck, let's say you buy War Machine. War Machine comes with an aspect. There are 4 aspects to this game, and they're color-coded. So all of the cards that came in the War Machine deck, I told you there were 15 that were specific to War Machine. Those are his unique hero cards. And then in addition to that, I believe I got 20 or so aspect cards, and the aspect was blue, which is leadership. These are the cards that are sort of generic. When you assemble your hero before playing a game, you can pick an aspect. It doesn't have to be the one that came with the deck. The one that came with my deck for War Machine was blue. So I've collected a big stack of blue cards here because a certain number of them come with each hero, and a certain number came with the core box. Now, in addition to leadership, which is blue, there is a green deck. Let me show you that one. The green deck is protection. These cards typically help you defend yourself, your allies, and your fellow players. There is a yellow deck. This one is called Justice. Okay, Justice cards. Justice cards do a lot of things. At least I may be wrong here, but they seem to do a lot of things with allies, and also leveling the playing field, like taking schemes off or hindering the villain, making it a more fair fight. Then there's my favorite, which is the red deck. The War Machine did not come with a red aspect. The red aspect is aggression. These cards mainly deal with ramping up your damage, doing more damage, taking less damage, or doing retaliatory damage. I totally switched out my War Machine blue leadership deck with red cards. You only pick one aspect. You picked leadership, protection, justice, or aggression. And remember, you can have up to 50 cards in your deck. So you have 15 automatically that are assigned to your unique hero. That leaves, let's say you go up to 50, your deck has to be between 40 and 50 cards. So assuming you're going to go up to 50, that leaves 35 cards. Well, you're not going to just pick 35 cards from your aspect. There's one additional set of cards, and they're gray. You won't be able to see this. But these are called basic cards, and they are available to every player. It doesn't matter what aspect you choose. You can always choose a certain number of basic cards to fill out your deck. So you might choose to have, let's say you have 35 cards left to fill out your deck. You might choose 20 of the aggression and 15 of the basic. And the basic are typically, that's what they are. They're basic add-ons that you can play to enhance damage or enhance healing or add bonuses to your allies and things like that. They're not specific to a hero, and they really don't conform to an aspect, which is a style. I would call the aspect sort of like your style of play. Like the green, protective. You're going to find that a lot of the cards in that deck have to deal with healing or protecting yourself or your allies or your fellow players. Whereas I choose aggression, red, and I'm going full on enhance not just the damage that Warhammer does by himself, but I can throw in some red cards to add more damage. The basic cards, some of them do add to damage, but most of them are very, very basic cards. And so once you've picked a certain number of your aspect, a certain number of basic cards, and then the hero unique specific cards. You'll have a deck of between 40 and 50 cards. You'll shuffle that deck, and then you will. That's when you'll start playing. Now, when you shuffle the deck, I don't want to go over all the rules in the game. This was more of my just explaining to you why you really want to check this game out. It's just, I am now a fan. I have become a fan of this game because when my son plays Venom and I play War Machine, we are just rocking it. We are. He will get rid of the minions that pile up on me. From when you play Ultron, for example, Ultron just is constantly hitting you with drones. If you remember the movie with Ultron in it, he had hundreds or thousands of drones. Well, the deck plays like that. He's always throwing drones at you, and they're annoying. And so Sawyer has certain cards that allow him to just take out minions. I have one called Scorched Earth, which I do like to play, and it takes out minions and enemy and everything, and does damage all across. But between the two of us, him playing Venom and me playing War Machine, we've sort of figured out each other's style of play. Now, he also likes Thor. Thor is it's one of those games where this triggers that, which triggers that, which triggers that, which triggers this, he is crazy. He can keep track of all that. I'm just like, let me do damage. I like Hulk. I like to play Hulk. Hulk is just like stomp, smash. It's very fun. I do like to play Doctor Strange. I will tell you that I've only played Doctor Strange a couple times. Doctor Strange, a lot of people say it's overpowered, and I guess it kind of is. He is a very powerful deck. And most people say, or most videos that you watch on the game will tell you that Doctor Strange is probably the most powerful hero so far. He has spells that can be cast, and then he has all these relics like the cloak that can cause him to give you aerial. It lets him fly, and it's a pretty cool deck. I tell you this only because, like I said, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. If you have a favorite Marvel superhero who's not too vague or too out there, sort of an unknown, chances are it's available. I mean, I go and I look at all the heroes that are available, and most of them have been in the movies, or you know who they are, and they're available. The Guardians of the Galaxy, the Drax, Star-Lord, Gamora, Groot, Rocket, who else did I mention? Did I miss somebody? They're all available as individual heroes that you can play. All the Avengers, I told you, are pretty much available. Spider-Man 2, Honorary Avenger. And then there's, like I said, a handful, maybe 5 or so that I don't know who they are, but they look cool. I don't want this video to go too long. What I'm going to be doing is my son and I are going to record a game. We probably will do more than one game. So if this sounds of interest to you, hang tight. In the next few days, I should be posting a follow-up video of us playing the game. If you have any questions about the game, post them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. I think I've got a grasp of the game, so I should be able to help you out. It comes with a basic learn to play guide, which if you read this, it will teach you the game. However, I'm going to try to remember to put a link to a video that I watched and Sawyer watched that I think is one of the best videos on YouTube for teaching you the game. I'll remember to put that in the description below. It also comes with a reference guide, and this is like, if you're in the middle of a game and you forgot what a certain keyword does, you just flip in here and it'll tell you exactly. It'll give you a more detailed explanation. So you keep these two handy. The game plays very fast. I say very fast. A 2-player game takes about an hour to an hour and a half. If that doesn't sound fast, trust me, it goes by very quickly. We either lose or we win, and then we're like, where did the time go? Very enjoyable. I will say that what I like most about this game, other than the mechanics of it, is the fact that my son really enjoys it. And because both of us enjoy playing this game, it's more time I get to play with him. He's not in front of a video game screen. He's across the table from me, and we're laughing, and we're, cutting up playing this game, and it's enjoyable. So if you were looking for a game that you might play with one or more kids in your family, or a cousin or niece or nephew, whatever, you might want to look at this, because It's not age specific. You can enjoy this as an adult. You can enjoy this as a kid. The rules are not so complicated that a young child could not figure this game out. As a matter of fact, Sawyer figured it out much faster than I did. The mechanics, the unusual play of it. It's a pretty easy game to pick up. And then once you pick up the game and get the rules down, then you're going to want to get into customizing your deck, trying to find those cards and that aspect that lets you play the game the way you like to play it. If you're not a damage dealer like me, you're more of a cleric, a guardian, a healer. Pick the green, customize the basic cards, buy a hero who's sort of known for that, and just have fun with it. All right, that's enough. This is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Thanks for joining me on this real quick summary of Marvel Champions. I'll put a link to the game below and a link to that how to play video. And again, if you have any questions, post them and I'll do my best. All right, everybody, take care.